The Jezebel of pornography needs to be tossed out of the castle window, trampled under the foot of the horsemen, eaten by dogs, and turned into dung on the face of the field. Now you might say, Alan, whoa. You're speaking too harshly. No, I don't think I'm speaking harsh enough. I wrote the Bible and Bitcoin for you, Bible-believing Christian, and in it I lay out the biblical basis for what money is, why our current fiat monetary system is ungodly, and how Bitcoin is the best and most viable, biblically compliant replacement for government fiat money. There's even a small group study guide in the back with additional resources to study with your church small group. Get it on Amazon or pay with Bitcoin at thebibleandbitcoin.com for a discount. Welcome to another episode of the Bible and Bitcoin podcast. As always, I am your host, Alin Armstrong, and today I will be the guest. Today's episode, I want to make my life a complete open book for you all and share my testimony with you of how I came out of pornography, how the Lord can even free you from pornography, because it is an absolute problem. Lately on Twitter, if you've been noticing, a lot of people have been posting about whether or not Elon should consider banning pornography from Twitter. As far as I'm concerned, this is a no-brainer. Twitter should or X. I mean, it doesn't help that it's called X now. We all know what X is associated with, but it doesn't help that porn has been so rampant, even on a platform like Twitter. And so, should Elon ban it? Absolutely. Should it be banned completely? Absolutely. Why? Well, because pornography is absolutely rampant in our world. And if I had to guess, it is even rampant among the ranks of the church. Now, I want to share some stories with you. Case in point, when I worked in a local youth ministry of a rather large church in my city, I used to intern there. We had a thing called an internet tracker. I forget what it was called. It's probably every router has this, but where you could track each device being used on the network, and you could see exactly what websites that device was visiting. Now, most people name their devices, their cell phones, computers, after themselves, and so a lot of people outed themselves because of this. But let me just, I digress. We had this internet tracker set up on our Wi-Fi to see which websites were being visited on our network. Now, during the hours of 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. on Friday nights. Now, these were the nights we had our youth programs. We had junior high youth, grades, whatever it was, 5 to 8, I think. And then we had senior high youth, grades 9 to 12, on the same night in separate rooms of the building. But it was between 7 and 9 p.m. And during those hours on Friday nights, we seen an uptick in pornographic websites that were consistently being visited. Now, we had to try to fix this, but at the end of the day, these kids were visiting these websites, and we could put blockers and do whatever, but that was not going to fix the fundamental problem, because once they left the building and got on another network or another whatever, they could just visit those websites all over again. Also, another interesting fact is when I do go preaching out in the streets, here's a tip for you guys if you ever go preaching out in the streets. The easiest way to hook young men into a gospel conversation is very simple. Just point at them and say this: "Hey, you, young man, yeah, you, I know that you're watching porn." This will get them to engage with you every single time. I remember I was at a fireworks thing happening locally, and before the fireworks started, people were filing into the park, and I would stand on the sidewalk, and no one wanted to talk to me. It was mainly teenagers and young people. No one wanted to talk about the gospel until I said, "Hey, I know you're watching porn." Then all of a sudden the floodgates opened, and I had young people surrounding me saying, "Yeah, what's the big deal about it? Yeah, of course I am. Yeah, we all are," cheering and doing all types of stuff. Boasting in their sin, and I was able to share with them, "Young man, you don't understand. This is destroying you. You need Jesus. That just illustrates the point that I'm making here, that young men are viewing pornography at alarming rates. So when you're talking to young people, if you're bold, this works every time to get them to talk about Jesus Christ with you. Because it's true. It's just true. They would stop and they would boast about their sin. They would cheer about their pornography consumption as if it's some kind of cool thing that everyone does. Now, the only difference between porn use in the world, so when I'm out in the streets preaching and I get, teenagers in grades 9 to 12 cheering about their porn use, listen, it was happening in the church secretly. It was happening in the world. It's happening in the church secretly. It's happening in the world in your face. But the only difference between the porn use in the world and the porn use in the church is this. In the church, we don't boast about it loudly. In the church, we hide our pornography use, or at least we try to hide it. And being in both of these worlds, I was able to make this, to see this perspective that just because you're in the church doesn't mean that this is not a problem. It is a huge problem. And I would wager to say that the pornography use in the world and in the church is probably similar at the same rate. Maybe even higher in the church, because we know that the Bible says that a sin grows in the darkness, that we have to walk in the light. So if you're in the church context, if you're among Christians, if you're in the local church, it would not surprise me if the pornography use among those men is actually higher than the world. Now, it's probably about the same, I would say, but it wouldn't surprise me because when you hide in the dark, this thing grows. So in this podcast episode, I want to share with you my journey, my struggle, how the Lord brought me through pornography use into freedom. So my first time encountering porn was, of course, accidentally. Most of these young guys, probably everybody encounters porn for the first time accidentally. Now, I was walking, here's what happened. I was walking in my neighborhood behind the fences. There was a big field there and there was a factory, but in between the homes and the factory, there's this large stretch of grass, and playing in the tall grass and doing what young boys do, just, exploring. When all of a sudden, I noticed a glossy image in the tall grass, and it caught my eye. So I went over and I picked up this glossy image to investigate, and lo and behold, my eyes took in images of women that I had never seen before, to put it lightly. My 11-year-old or 12-year-old, I forget exactly how old, I was between 11 and 12, that young male brain absorbed those images like a sponge, and those images stuck with me. It was as if those images imprinted themselves on my mind and made a sort of mold and just stuck there. When I closed my eyes, I saw these images, and I all of a sudden had this insatiable urge to seek out more and more and more of these images. Shortly after, I was at school, and this happens a lot in our public schools. And it was during recess, when we were lining up to go back inside the school. I remember there was a boy in line there who was passing around a note, and this note had a website address on it where you could go and access unlimited pornographic images and even videos. Now, I didn't know what this website address was at first. It's just all the boys were saying, hey, check this out when you get home. Check this out when you get home. You will not regret it. So, of course, I wanted to be like everybody else. So when I got home and I was all alone, I typed in that website address and was greeted with a never-ending list of links with descriptions of the images and videos that those links were about to show me. Now, little did I know, in that moment, I was hooked. I had to keep this, obviously, from my parents because there's an element of shame. I knew instinctively if they found out, I was in trouble. But I also knew that I probably could keep it a secret from them. So, no harm, no foul, I thought. All the boys in my class were looking at this stuff, and so I tried to rationalize this. Well, everyone else is doing it. It must be a normal thing to do. You'd go to school the next day and everybody would be sharing links, and some boys even printed out pictures and brought them to school to show off. Now, as I think back on this time of my life, I wonder how in the world we got away with this. How in the world were 11, 12, 13-year-old boys able to print pornographic pictures, bring them to school, and pass them around class without being caught? In the summer that followed, me and some of my buddies would go to the corner store, and we had a plan. One of us would distract the cashier while the other, more tall boys would go to the magazine rack and swipe the magazines from the top shelf. Of course, we know what's on the top shelf. And would stuff it in our shirt or whatever. We would take these pornographic magazines off the top shelf and we would walk out. Now remember, we're 12, 13, 14 years old and we're stealing pornographic magazines off the shelf. Today, kids don't need to go to this length to get their hands on pornographic material. Back then, you either have to go to the store and steal this stuff, or maybe if somebody's parents had some magazines, you'd swipe that from your parents when they weren't looking or something like that. But we went to the store, we would steal. Today, kids don't need to do this. They don't need to become thieves. All they have to do is have access to a device that has the internet, and lo and behold, they have complete, comprehensive libraries at their disposal. And not only that, it's not like they even have to go out to search for this stuff. If you're on these apps like TikTok or whatever for long enough, pornographic material will find you. It's actively seeking our young people. So we have to go out of our way today. The pornographic industry goes out of their way to make sure young kids are seeing their product, if you will. So as time went on and the internet became more and more sophisticated, I spent my entire teenage years viewing porn daily. The internet made it much easier. I didn't have to go steal magazines anymore. I could just go on my laptop, close my door, and there it was. Eventually, it got to a point where I was numb to it. It was just a normal part of life. I thought everybody looks at porn. It would kind of be weird not to look at porn. I would not be a part of my social circle if I did not view pornography. It was almost a given. Every young man is doing this. These are the years I ought to have been preparing for adulthood. I ought to have been learning how to be productive, responsible, interacting with my peers. Instead, I spent those formative years watching porn and rotting my brain. Of course, I was awkward around the girls in high school, probably because my brain had been literally trained to only view them as sexual objects. Now, all this is happening, and I have no idea it's happening. I didn't think it was affecting me at all. This is what I like to tell young men when I talk to them about this issue. They say, look, porn, it just is what it is. It's normal. It's cool, man. Don't worry about it. It's not affecting me. But the reality is, if you're viewing this stuff and you're a teenager or you're in your, early 20s, you are too young for it to have totally wrecked you just yet. You're in the process of being wrecked. This affects you over time. This is having an effect on your brain generally now, but it won't be felt until many years later. Look, you don't reap the harvest in the same season you sow the seed. Young man, right now, there's millions of your peers just like you, even in our churches, that are sowing this deadly seed of porn into their minds, and they have no idea what that will reap for them in the next season of their life. Destruction and brain rot and absolute just devastation for their lives. Believe me, I know this because I experienced this. I got saved in the year 2008, early 2008, and I was early in my 20s. And guess which secret sin plagued me the most? Of course, it was porn. Now, I prayed and I prayed and I prayed for God to take this desire away from me, but it didn't work. I lamented and I wondered, God, why are you not healing me of this? God, don't you want me to be free of this? I know this is a sin. I know that this breaks your heart. I know I have to stop. So why aren't you answering my prayer to take this from me? The reason was because I was asking God to take away something He gave me. Now listen closely. God did not give me the desire for pornography. That's not what I'm saying. But He did make me a male, so He did give me my sexual desire. The Bible tells us that there are some people who have been given the gift of celibacy. But for the vast majority of us, males and females for that matter, that's not the case. God gives most people the gift of sexual desire. Why? It's very simple. Because without it, we would have no incentive to multiply, to fulfill the dominion mandate. Without your sexual desire, why would you have a family? Why would you pursue the opposite sex? Why would you want to be married? Why would you want to build civilization? There was no incentive for it. It's that desire, it's that drive that God has given you in order to fulfill your image of God purpose. Look at what it says here in Genesis chapter 1. So God created man in His image. In the image of God, He created him. Male and female, He created them. Already we see here the dual opposite sex creation of the image of God. He created man, Adam, in God's image. He created man, Adam, male and female. Why? Because the male and the female complement each other for this purpose. Verse 28. And God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over every living thing that moves on the earth. There it is. God creates man, male, and female, and the first thing He says is be fruitful and multiply, because the male and the female presupposes that they go together. That fruitfulness comes out of our identity, and it's that gift of sexual desire that propels this mandate forward. You cannot be fruitful, you cannot multiply without sexual desire. I mean, I suppose you could, there'd be no incentive for you to do it. Your sexual desire is not bad. It is not sinful. It's just misguided. And that's what I missed. That's what I wasn't seeing. From that formative age of puberty to adulthood, porn had stepped into that gap and misaligned my God-given sexual desire. Men were never meant to have access to rapid-fire sexual images of women whenever he wanted. This is unnatural. This is not how the male brain was wired by God. God wired you, and He wired me for intimacy with one woman in the context of social, responsible community. Porn tricks your brain. It tricked my brain into thinking sex carries no responsibility. This is why porn doesn't just affect you individually, it affects the whole community you live in, the whole world. It tricks your brain, it rewires your brain to divorce sexual intimacy from social responsibility. You think sex is just for pleasure, but no, God made it to be to help you grow in your social responsibility and to be pleasurable into one package. Now, abortion, sex trafficking, all this stuff comes as a result of our twisted brain, our misguided idea of what it means to be made in God's image and what sexual desire is for. We think it's just a quick thrill and you move on. But in the real world, sexual intimacy carries tremendous social responsibility. Look, you have to meet a woman. You have to meet her family. You have to meet her father. You have to meet her friends. She actually has to like you. You have to marry her. And then after all of that process, you get intimacy with her. However, even then it doesn't stop, because that's followed generally by children coming into the world, more responsibility. This is the dominion mandate, to be fruitful and multiply. It does not divorce sexual intimacy from social responsibility. The two have to come together. The two have to complement one another, or else we see a destruction of the dominion mandate, actual turning on the head of the dominion mandate that says, don't be fruitful, don't multiply, and let the earth take dominion of you, be ruled by your own desires, your own animalistic, sinful desires. The dominion mandate says, be fruitful and multiply. When we don't understand that in context of being made in God's image and what sexual desire is meant to do, make us socially responsible and build civilization, it actually ends up destroying civilization. And this was the paradigm I was missing. Even as a Christian, no one taught me this stuff. I was told in church stuff like, look, porn is bad, but don't talk about it too much. I remember I came up with a precursor to my course. Slaying the Beast was a seminar, and I came up with the seminar, and I wanted to run it at it was at the same church where the youth were watching porn in the bathrooms from 7 to 9 p.m. Well, maybe it wasn't even in the bathrooms. Maybe it was right during service. It's not like we had people looking at people's phones over their shoulder. The reality was, between 7 and 9 p.m., youth were watching porn during the youth ministry hours. That same church, I came up with a seminar, and I wanted to promote it, and they kept it hush-hush. No, we don't want people to know. Porn is icky. It's embarrassing. We'll let you run the seminar, but we're not going to advertise it. Or if we do advertise it, it's just going to be, this is how it was advertised, as a men's ministry night. A men's ministry night. They wouldn't really let me push the envelope here. So, look, it was taught to me like this. Porn's bad. Don't talk about it, though, or keep it hush-hush. Now, eventually I did get married. And that pull to come back to porn, it didn't go away with marriage. A lot of people think, well, I'll just get married and the temptation will go away. It will not. It was a long and a bumpy journey. I'd have like a month of sobriety, and then I'd fall back. But now I had a wife who would be disappointed, and so the shame got heavier on me, and no matter how much progress I made, even one slip up seemed like the whole world was ending. How in the world could I be free from this monster? It wasn't until I got into a small Christian men's group that was disconnected from any local church, because as I just said, a lot of local churches, they don't really want to deal with this. We were a bunch of guys from different churches that I began to see some lasting success. We were open and we were honest. There was no church hierarchy to sort of hide behind. We kept each other accountable, and that group really helped me to realize this one very important thing. You will struggle with this for life. I had to come to terms. I am addicted to this thing, and it's going to be a temptation forever. That was actually quite freeing. That was actually quite liberating to actually say that. Now listen carefully. that doesn't mean you're going to use it your whole life. Doesn't mean you're going to view it your whole life. No, it's just an acknowledgement that you are weak and you cannot kick this thing in your own strength. I have to remain vigilant forever. I can never take my foot off the pedal and say, yep, now I am completely overcoming it and it's good and I won. No, I must always be vigilant, always be attentive, because it's when you take your foot off the pedal, it's when you begin to think, I figured it out, that the temptation comes and you succumb to it. Now, I will say, for some, overcoming porn does happen overnight. God can heal you in just a moment of time like that. But for most, it's not like that. For most, our journey with overcoming porn is a lot like the Bitcoin price. It's very, very volatile. And that's how it was for me. I couldn't expect to reverse decades of corruption. Listen, I looked at porn every single day for well over a decade. You cannot reverse that like this. God can, and he does. However, a lot of times you have to reverse that, and it takes time, and it's an uphill battle. So I couldn't expect to reverse it just like that. Years, over a decade of corrupting my brain with these images. I couldn't just reverse it in a week. Porn is a serious addiction, and it literally rewires your brain. God did not make your brain to view these images rapid fire, different women, boom, 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 one after another, every day for over a decade during your most formative years of your life. He did not make your brain like that, and it does rewire you. It does. It creates like a neurological gorge in your brain that you have to reverse over time. And the good news is you can, and I believe you will. One really powerful antidote to crushing porn under your feet that's helped me a lot is to just bring it to the light. I can remember a time at my old church. Now, this was the same church that I've been talking about throughout here, where they did cardboard testimonies. And I'm surprised they let me do this, to be honest. But basically, you would have people write on one side of a poster board what their life was like before Jesus Christ. So, it would say something, and then they would flip it around, and it would be a description of what Christ did for them. So I decided, this is an easy one for me. So I'm going to write on one side, addicted to porn, and then on the other side, addicted to Christ. Now, I remember one of the pastors telling me after the fact that the senior pastor, because he looked through all of them to approve them, that he looked at mine and he showed the pastor that I was associated with, that I was working with. He said, "Is he sure about this? Is he sure he wants to do this?" And he says, "Yeah, I think he is serious about doing it." Now, I didn't know that little conversation happened, but I do now. So the Sunday morning came, where the cardboard testimonies were scheduled, and I showed up to the church a little bit early. This is what I expected. I expected people to have signs that read like drug dealer, and then they'd flip it and it would say hope dealer, or I used to be a felon and now I'm free. But what I found was everyone in the back looking at my sign going, patting me on the back saying, "Wow, you're so brave. Thank you for doing this." And I'm like, guys, wait a minute. Aren't we all supposed to be brave here? Why am I the only one who's brave right now? I thought we were all brave together, but for some reason I'm the only one. And I would look at their sign and it would be very, very generic. Was lost, now I'm found. Or I was angry and now I'm happy. And I'm thinking, guys, this isn't... Okay, yeah, we were all lost and now we're found. That's not unique to you. That's everybody who was a Christian story. Why? And in that moment I realized, oh my goodness, what am I getting myself into? I think I might have made a absolute big mistake here. But I had no choice. I had to go. And I realized I was about to stand in front of 1,000 people with a sign that literally read, I was addicted to porn. So I went out there anyway. And something amazing happened, because a burden was lifted from my shoulders. It was now out in the open. I brought my sin to the light. I had no more shame. This grip of darkness was vanquished, and I took a significant step forward in living free. As time went on, God showed me more and more how heinous pornography was. I used to think it was just for men and women who would make these videos for money. It was a business, whatever. But what I didn't see was the sex trafficking, the human slavery that this industry incentivizes, the abortions, the rampant drug use, the suicide among those in the pornography industry, the residual effects of families and marriages and shambles and children left in single-family homes. When I stepped outside myself, I saw a web of evil, of wickedness, of deceit that can only be described in the words of Proverbs 7, which describes the wicked woman, if you will, to put it nicely. It says, with much seductive speech she persuades him. With her smooth talk she compels him. All at once he follows her, and as an ox goes to the slaughter, or as a stag is caught fast, till an arrow pierces its liver, as a bird rushes into a snare, he does not know that it will cost him his life. Proverbs 7:21-23. You think this thing is harmless when you're young, but before you know it, not only are you caught in the trap, but the entirety of civilization of the castrated men that have been destroyed are right beside you. I realized defeating porn was not just good for me. It was good for civilization. Look, I can't be entangled in this sin, not because it's good for me to be free only, but it will hurt my neighbor through the residual effects of this evil wickedness. It's not just about you. And maybe you've gotten this far and you're thinking, okay, man, I'm glad it worked for you, but I'm too deep. I've tried everything. I can never kick this thing. Look, I'm living proof that you can and you will if you just don't give up. And there are many others. Listen to the words you're thinking, you're saying, I will never kick this thing. Maybe not for you. Don't do it for you. Do it for others. Because as a man, you have been wired by God to protect and to serve. There's a reason that from a young age, and this is true, this is absolutely a fact, from a young age, boys daydream about rescuing a girl or a family, their family, from a burning building, or saving a girl or their family from a gang of thugs. If you're a man, you know you did this as a young boy, and you probably still do it today. Why? Because God has wired you to protect, to serve the female gender. It's because we want to serve and protect. That's who we are. So switch the paradigm. You're thinking, I can't do this. I can't do this. I'm too deep. Yeah, you're right. You can't do it. Yeah, you're right. You probably are too deep. But do it for the world. Do it for your neighbor. Do it for your family. You must overcome porn. Not for your own good only, but for the next generation. We now must lay this godly foundation and vanquish pornography from the earth. We must do this. But it starts with you. It starts with me. Take that sexual energy that you've misdirected for far too long and apply it to using it for what God gave it to you for, to protecting, to serving, to fulfilling the dominion mandate. If you're married, direct that energy into your marriage. If you're single, direct it to becoming the best, most godly man you can be in order to find a wife, and direct that, therefore, then at your marriage. This pernicious beast has made the church impotent for far too long. The Jezebel of pornography needs to be tossed out of the castle window, trampled under the foot of the horsemen, eaten by dogs, and turned into dung on the face of the field. Now you might say, Alan, whoa, whoa, whoa. You're speaking too harshly. No, I don't think I'm speaking harsh enough. Porn is a merciless dragon that wants to tear you limb from limb and destroy your life and your civilization. Porn wants to castrate your sons and make your daughters into sex slaves. And you're telling me I'm speaking too harsh. The enemy laughs, cackles at your limp-wristed criticism because he knows you are easy, effeminate prey. No, no, no. Enough is enough. Enough is enough. I've created a program for you to finally overcome this beast. It's called Slaying the Beast. It's an online program with access to a private Discord server where you're going to meet other men who are fighting and winning the battle against pornography. This course basically compiles my over a decade of experience, failings, and wins of walking in freedom from porn. I tried to make it as affordable as I could. It's only $37, just a one-time fee for lifetime access. You're not going to find anything else like this out there for that price. So right now, if you're listening to this, if you're feeling convicted, if you want to finally kick this thing, do it for the civilization. Do it for the dominion mandate. Be fruitful and multiply. This is the civilization building mandate. Go to slaythebeastnow.com for your instant access. You can begin walking in freedom today. Join us on the Discord server. We will help you. We will pray for you. You can do this. By the grace of God, you will do this. Because God has made you to do this. This is your identity. We're not perfect. I'm not perfect. The temptation is there always. But together we can fight. Together we can win. And so come and join us. It's time to do this. Now is the time. Do it for your family, for your children. Do it for the next generation. Freedom is waiting for you, because whom the Son sets free is free indeed. Thanks for watching this episode. I hope it was a blessing to you. My life is an open book now. There you have it. Until next time, grace and peace. Bitcoin Well is a non-custodial Bitcoin platform in Canada and the USA. That means every single Satoshi you buy goes straight to your self-custody. They offer free withdrawals, a simple 1% spread, and they have the Bitcoin Wishing Well, where you can win up to 1 million Satoshis by earning points and throwing the coin in the well. In fact, you get 5 coin tosses to the Bitcoin Wishing Well when you sign up at bitcoinwell.com/pastorcoin.